Aloha and welcome. This is Eagle News America. I'm Alfred DeSantis coming to you from Hawaii. My island is the island of Oahu, also known as Honolulu County. Joining me in this broadcast are my colleagues from across the United States. We begin in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., where Evelyn Ramos reports about President Donald Trump continuing to press for schools to reopen nationwide. On to Maryland. Ken Cruz from Fort Washington reports about Maryland Governor Larry Hogan being asked by lawmakers to extend this eviction moratorium until January of next year. On to Pennsylvania. In Swarthmore, we have Myla Simbulan with her report.
Pennsylvania government allocates additional $53 million for child care providers affected by pandemic.
Still on the East Coast, in New Jersey, we have Mayann Guerzon in Sicklerville reporting about Governor Phil Murphy announcing new funding to combat food insecurity in that state. Let's head on down to Florida. Abby Aragon in Tampa reports about Pinellas County extending executive orders amid the surge of cases of COVID-19. Still in the South, in Louisiana, we have Monique Velasco from Baton Rouge updating us on the governor there ordering a statewide mask-wearing mandate. Now, on to the West Coast. In the Pacific Northwest, we have Frendel Feheran in Seattle.
Washington school districts collaborate with community leaders and parents to reopen schools safely.
On to Southern California, we have David Rayo with his update. He talks about LA County residents being affected by COVID-19 and receiving assistance from the Iglesia Ni Cristo or Church of Christ. Moving on to Southern Nevada, we have Anna Cui.
Nevada Governor Sisolak issues Emergency Directive number 27, elevated disease transmission criteria.
Plus later on, a story about neighbors helping neighbors. The Iglesia Ni Cristo or Church of Christ in LA County reaches out to residents there affected by the pandemic. But first, like we always do, we begin with the latest overview on how the world looks right now in regards to the coronavirus pandemic. According to the Coronavirus Resource Center at Johns Hopkins, as of July 12, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, the number of cases of COVID-19 reported worldwide is now more than 12,800,000. That includes more than 3.2 million in the U.S. And on a sad note, this virus has also claimed more than 567,000 worldwide, to include 135,000 plus in the United States. We begin with some world news. The United Nations Security Council failed to find a consensus on prolonging cross-border humanitarian aid to Syria on Friday after Russia and China vetoed an extension and members rejected a counter-proposal by Moscow. Without an agreement, authorization for the transport of aid to the war-torn country, which has existed since 2014, has expired as of Friday night. Germany and Belgium were working on a final initiative to save the effort, with hopes of bringing it to a vote this past weekend. German Ambassador Christoph Heusgen, who holds the rotating presidency of the UN Security Council, this month said they are ready to work around the clock and call on others to think of the millions of people affected in Syria waiting for the Security Council to decide on their fate. Let's listen in.
The result of the voting is as follows. 13 votes in favor, 2 votes against, no abstentions. The draft resolution has not been adopted owing to the negative vote of 2 permanent members of the Council.
After Moscow and Beijing wielded vetoes for a second time this past week, only 3 countries joined Russia in backing the proposal to cut the number of aid transit points from 2 to 1. China supported Russia, but 7 countries, including the US, Great Britain, France, Germany, and Belgium, voted against, with 4 abstentions. An attempt by Russia to pass a similar resolution also failed earlier this past week. The non-government organization, or NGO, Oxfam, had warned that stopping cross-border aid would be a devastating blow to the millions of Syrian families who rely on this kind of help for clean water, food, healthcare, and shelter. 13 countries voted in favor of an earlier German-Belgian draft, but Moscow and Beijing opposed the extension because they favor a more limited proposal. European countries and the United States want to maintain 2 crossing points on the Turkish border at Bab al-Salam, which leads to the Aleppo region, and Bab al-Hava, which serves as the Idlib region. The UN authorization allows the body to distribute aid to displaced Syrians without needing permission from the capital of Damascus. Russia and China argue that the UN authorization violates Syria's sovereignty and that aid can increasingly be channeled through the Syrian authorities. The latest proposal by Russia, which claims to want a continued aid for the insurgent Idlib region, would have kept only the Bab al-Hava access point open and for 1 year. Moscow claims that more than 85% of current aid goes through Bab al-Hava and that the Bab al-Salam entry point can therefore be closed. Western countries oppose it, with the US having described 2 entry points as a red line. In January, Moscow, Syria's closest ally, succeeded in having the crossing points reduced from 4 to 2 and in limiting the authorization to 6 months instead of 1 year. Meanwhile, on to Latin America. President Donald Trump, at a roundtable in support of the people of Venezuela at a church in Doral, Florida, says that the U.S. is standing with the righteous and rightful leaders of Venezuela. Let's take a look.
We imposed historic sanctions on the Maduro regime. We indicted Maduro for narco-terrorism, as you know, everybody here knows. We're standing with the righteous and rightful leaders of Venezuela. At this time, it's Juan Guaido. But this election coming up is a very important one. I used to say 2016 the most important, and maybe I'll still say that, but this is equal to that. This is equal because we need that extra time to have it seed like a tree. You move it, it has to grab on.
In just 12 weeks, Southcom's surge operation conducted with key regional partners has resulted in more than 1,000 arrests and the interdiction of 120 metric tons, I can only tell you that's a lot, of narcotics worth billions and billions of dollars. We're determined to keep dangerous drugs out of the country and away from our children. We're securing our seas. We're securing our borders. This is a new operation, not been done before.
In other news, Harvard University in Massachusetts has decided to sue the Trump administration after it threatened to revoke the visas of foreign students whose entire courses have moved online because of the pandemic. The U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, announced this week that foreign students whose entire courses have moved online because of the pandemic must return to their home country. Harvard and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or MIT, launched a lawsuit last Wednesday asking the court to revoke the order that Harvard President Larry Bacco said had thrown higher education in the U.S., quote, into chaos. But the action has done little to alleviate the worries of foreign students, of which there were more than 1 million in the U.S. in 2019, a doubling in the last 20 years. More than 4,000 foreign students attend California's public universities, and another almost 5,000 at Harvard in the East Coast, establishments that plan to offer online-only education this coming fall. According to the Chronicle of Higher Education in their website, some 84% of universities are planning to offer a hybrid system of in-person and online classes, which would save students from deportation. When we come back, we're going to meet with our fellow correspondents across the United States. Stay tuned. This is Eagle News America.
All or nothing na ang magiging labanan sa tagisan ng galing. Dahil ang top 30 ay sasalain na para mabuo ang top 15 semi-finalist.
Sino ba sila? Karaniwang tao, saan katatakbo?
I've been praying for. Tutukan niyan this weekend sa pinakamalawak na talent competition on Philippine TV and online. Ito ang Tagisan ng Galing.
Tagisan ng Galing is presented by SMC Infrastructure, building a better world. Sandig sugar-free white coffee, puno ng white coffee taste without the sugar, kaya lower calories. Try mo na Sandig sugar-free white coffee. Sarap ng white coffee, now sugar-free. Vet-approved Nutrichunks, the only premium dog food with active boost for optimum energy and prebiotics that help strengthen immunity. Just like Catherine Bernardo, gawing listo, ganado ang fur babies niyo. Listo ganado sa Nutrichunks. Magnolia Chicken Templados, delicious, ready to cook and freshly marinated daily. Pure Foods Luncheon Meat, pure sarap for every family. Star Chunky Cheese Corned Beef, ang cheesy ng corned beef mo. Walang duda, kids can tell na #1 ang Pure Foods Tender Juicy. Ang tender, ang juicy, ang sarap. Co-presented by Cooper, expert in air conditioning and electromechanical. Also engaged in structural, electrical, fire protection, plumbing and sanitary services. Cooper, your ultimate MEPS and air conditioning solutions. Ulan Incorporated International, fight against global poverty. New San Jose Builders Incorporated. Canrib Corporation, your ventilation and air conditioning specialist. VitaHerbs Philippines Green Coffee. Masarap, mabango, at healthy pa. Puerto Rico Resort and Convention Center, Cabiao, Nueva Ecija. I love Puerto Rico. In participation with Rain or Shine Elastomeric Waterproofing Paint, Matimco, R Square Variables Incorporated, Compizel Enterprises, Saisho International Trading Corporation, DN Steel, EMAC UPB Roof Corporation. East West Bank, your dream, our focus.
Hey, Aggression Ho here, and I'm a white coffee lover. Creamy kasi, and very yummy. Pero mas masarap kung hindi nakaka-guilty. Check my new discovery, Sandwich Sugar-Free White Coffee. Puno ng white coffee taste without the sugar, kaya lower calories. Try mo na! Sandwich Sugar-Free White Coffee. Sarap ng white coffee, now sugar-free.
The successful development of TPLEX, or Tarlac-Pangasinan-La Union Expressway in 2009, a 4-lane toll road that extends from Tarlac City to Rosario, La Union, with an additional approved extension of 56 kilometers all the way to San Juan, La Union. This is expected to reduce travel time to Baguio and other provinces in northern Luzon. Realizing the vision of creating a better world for Filipinos fueled the team's focus.
Listo at ganado ang baby ko sa vet-approved Nutri-Chunks with active boost and prebiotics na pampalisto. Made with real meat, with essential nutrients to help them grow healthy and happy. Listo, ganado sa Nutri-Chunks.
Ikaw lang ang star ng buhay ko. Para sa akin, perfect ka. Ang cheesy ng corned beef mo. Pag Star Chunky Cheese Corned Beef, sarap ng corned beef, inangat pa ng real cheese cubes. Star Chunky Cheese Corned Beef.
Accurate and fair reporting. Not only from Batanes to Tawi-Tawi, but also abroad. Detailed and timely stories relevant to people all over the world. Catch all of these at Net25, your reliable source of news, entertainment, and technology updates.
We know that this is a scary time for all of us.
The coronavirus is changing the world.
Changing our lives.
So please, take care of yourself.
Keep your distance.
Wash your hands.
And if you can, stay at home.
We at DW
are here for you.
We are working tirelessly to keep you informed on all of our platforms.
We're all in this together.
And together,
we'll make it through.
Stay safe, everybody.
Stay safe.
Stay safe.
Stay safe.
Please, stay safe.
Mga kababayan, lalo na sa mga OFWs sa Middle East at North Africa, may good news kami para sa inyo. Mapapanood na ninyo ang Net25 at iba pang Filipino channels na hatid ng OSN sa presyong abot kaya. Libre ng box at installation, walang admin fees at no extra charges. Saktong entertainment na sakto lang sa budget mo. Bumisita na sa pinakamalapit na OSN store o dealer and subscribe Net25 at OSN. Siguradong at home ka dito.
Hi, I'm Ida.
Ida came back from her trip in Wuhan, China. She is a positive carrier of the coronavirus.
Hi, I'm Lorna.
Lorna is Ida's cousin. She can be a family member, a friend, a relative, a colleague, or anything related to Ida.
Oh, hi, I'm Faye.
Faye is not related to Ida. They don't know each other. She can be a stranger Ida meets on the train, in the supermarket, movie house, or in any public place. Now, Ida is in the hospital and is being treated, and Lorna is placed in quarantine. Ida doesn't know Faye. Lorna doesn't know Faye. And Faye doesn't even know anything.
Hi, I'm Innocencio.
Innocencio has no contact with any virus carrier. But if he goes out, it takes at least 14 days for the symptoms to show on Faye. This is the purpose of a community quarantine or lockdown, to give time for the healthcare professionals to find Faye and all those she had close contact with, and to keep Innocencio from contracting the virus. Let's stop the spread of the COVID-19.
We salute all our frontliners and healthcare workers. We are with you in this fight against COVID-19. I am Tyronel Pilyulu from EBC Japan Bureau, because we live in interesting times.
Welcome back to our broadcast here in Honolulu, Hawaii. President Donald Trump continues to press for schools to reopen this fall season. In Washington, D.C., we have Imelin Ramos with her report. Aloha, Imelin.
Alfred. As the heat wave continues here in Washington, D.C., with consecutive days of 90 degrees or more, the last thing on kids' minds is going back to school. However, as we continue the normal summer vacation that kids usually have during this time, the question of school reopening in the fall is a hot topic. as various states such as Florida is seeing a resurgence of COVID-19 cases. The Trump administration today again pressed for full school reopenings in the fall, and there is mounting criticism that a premature return to classes could pose a danger of greater spread of the disease. On some television interviews, Education Secretary Betsy DeVos insisted on the need for schools to reopen, even as several states were registering record numbers of coronavirus cases and hospitals in many cities were struggling to cope. On CNN, while acknowledging that local conditions should be taken into account, DeVos mentioned, quote, "Kids need to get back to school. They need to get back in the classroom. Families need for kids to get back in the classroom, and it can be done safely." The pressure to reopen schools has come from the top, with President Trump threatening to withhold federal funding from schools that refuse to reopen, a stance that DeVos reconfirmed. Trump has criticized guidelines from the Federal Centers for Disease Control for the safe reopening of schools, saying they were too rigid and too expensive. On CNN, DeVos refused to say whether or not schools should follow CDC guidelines on school reopenings. She said, quote, "The CDC guidelines are just that, meant to be flexible and meant to be applied as appropriate for the situation." But many school systems say the safety of millions of students, teachers, and staff can be ensured only with some combination of remote and in-person schooling, or in some cases, remote-only teaching, and that a fully in-person approach to be safe would impose extreme costs. DeVos was pressed as to whether the government would actually withhold federal funds from schools, which generally account for around 10% or local school budgets, a substantial contribution at a time when reopening costs for larger school systems can run to the millions. She also said on CNN, quote, "There is no desire to take money away. In fact, we want to see schools open and have been committed to ensuring the resources are here to do that." What might seem to be mixed signals, another administration spokesman cautioned Sunday that some areas might need to return to lockdowns. Admiral Brent Giroir, the Assistant Secretary of Health, said that COVID-19 deaths continuing to rise. He says, quote, "Everything should be on the table." He added on ABC's This Week, quote, "We're all very concerned," as he called for the reclosing of bars, greater spacing in restaurants, and the near universal wearing of masks in the areas most afflicted, largely in southern areas that reopened aggressively. So as we wait for our national and local leaders to give clear guidance on the reopenings of schools, I hope our kids can enjoy the summer months. Alfred, speaking of masks, there's that old cliche, a picture is worth 1,000 words. In this picture, we can see President Trump wearing a mask in front of the press in a trip to Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. As the wearing of masks has become highly politicized, I'm sure that many people will have strong opinions on the president wearing a mask. What about you? In Washington, D.C., I'm Lynn Bando Cremos, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you, Alfred.
Mahalo, Emily. Nothing to worry about for me and my family. Yes, we still have our masks close to our side, and we will wear them, especially outdoors. And just a little clarification on her report: about 90 degrees Fahrenheit is equivalent to 32.2 degrees Celsius. Thank you again for that report, Emily. Moving on to Maryland, Governor Larry Hogan has been asked by lawmakers to extend this eviction moratorium until January of 2021. With more, we have Ken Cruz in Fort Washington. Ken?
Maryland lawmakers who lead the House committee overseeing housing issues have written a letter calling on Governor Larry Hogan's administration to extend an eviction moratorium until next year and to provide more housing aid for those dealing with the economic effects of coronavirus. Earlier this month, Hogan spokesman Mike Ricci said more than $60 million was being spent to prevent evictions when including local government efforts. The current moratorium restricts Maryland's district court system from renewing eviction proceedings until July the 25th, when the current stay on residential activities is scheduled to be lifted. While state and some municipalities have created assistance funds to aid residents who are behind on rent and mortgage payments due to losing work to the COVID-19 pandemic, tenants' rights groups have warned the $30 million in funding from the state may be less than 1/4 of what's needed to aid all of the state's affected residents. The Aspen Institute predicts that as many as 330,000 Marylanders could be at risk of being evicted by the end of the year. The state has seen hundreds of thousands of jobless claims since the governor ordered most businesses closed in late March, April, and early May to mitigate the spread of the disease. The state's district court wrote last month that warrants of restitution for failure to repay rent cases would be processed after July 25th, and that the court will begin hearing failure to pay rent cases on August 31st. In their letter, the two lawmakers wrote that while they commend, quote, the early action taken by the Hogan administration, end quote, it says that, quote again, the uncertainty surrounding the proliferation of this virus and the need to keep individuals housed for their health and safety suggest a longer limitation on evictions is needed, end quote. In Fort Washington, Maryland, Ken Cruz, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you.
Mahalo. Thank you very much, Ken, for that update on the eviction moratorium, which is also similarly happening here in the Aloha State. You take care of yourself over there, please. Still on the East Coast in Pennsylvania, the Keystone State allocates an additional $53 million in funding for child care providers affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. We have our bureau chief in Swarthmore, Myla Simbulan, with the story. Aloha, Myla.
But just to give you
Aloha,
some sense.
Alfred. During this pandemic, child care providers greatly suffered. Back in March, a large number of child care facilities all across Pennsylvania closed. And for those that remained open, they lost many of their clients because parents no longer go to work and some are not comfortable bringing their kids to child care centers because they are afraid for their safety or their health. And this is not something that's happening only here in Pennsylvania, but also all over the United States or probably all over the world. Due to this crisis, last June, the state of Pennsylvania allocated $51 million as part of CARES Act funding for child care providers affected by COVID-19. An additional financial support of $53 million was also announced and will be distributed this month by the government. Why is there a need for additional financial support? Here's Governor Tom Wolf to explain to us. Let's watch.
But just to give you some sense of where we are, as of June 24th, 65 early childhood centers have closed. And I think I'm going to talk about, we have in June, the state used CARES Act money to the extent of $51 million. There were 100 child care centers that said, we're not going to be reopening, so we can't use it. We can't use the money. But 65, we know, have closed permanently. Of those 100, I don't know how many are going to get back eventually. But even before the pandemic began, affordable early childhood education was really, really important. It's important to our economy. The fewer child slots we have, the worse it is for people who are trying to get back to work. So that's why, again, in June, the state provided $51 million through CARES Act funding. In July, we're going to release another $53 million of child care development funds. And then there's an Act 24 from Pennsylvania also using federal dollars that after this will be using or investing another $116 million in early childhood centers. That's just through the summer months. This funding is really going to help child care providers bridge the gap until their clientele returns, whenever that is. And it's also going to help them with any increased costs that have been incurred during the pandemic. For example, centers now have to pay a lot more attention to things like sanitization and cleaning. We have 386,000 kids in early childhood centers like this. They have new responsibilities that they did not have before the pandemic hit.
The funding is distributed through the Department of Human Services, Office of Child Development and Early Learning. The department licenses child care providers in the state and is working together with Penn State Harrisburg's Institute of State and Regional Affairs on an impact study in order to understand challenges for child care providers reopening and resuming operations during COVID-19. The study conducted by Penn State highlights the various operational and financial impacts child care providers have endured and will continue to endure throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. Here's Department of Human Services Secretary Teresa Miller to explain to us what the next steps are after the preliminary studies. Let's watch.
Well, we don't know how this pandemic will look in a week, in a month, or in a year. We do know that a healthy, robust child care system will be absolutely critical to weather the economic recovery ahead. This study will capture the experiences and challenges that child care providers have endured since COVID-19 arose in Pennsylvania and will allow us to direct another $116 million how and where our child care providers need them most. This industry is vital to both a healthy economy and our children's futures, and we will not abandon our child care providers who dedicate their lives to our youngest Pennsylvanians, often at low pay and now at risk to their health. Thank you again for your dedication to caring for and educating our youngest Pennsylvanians.
Based on the preliminary findings of the study, distributing stimulus funds in July is critical to ensure adequate capacity is available in the future. Data collected through the study will be used to help determine allocation of the remaining $116 million. In Swarthmore, Pennsylvania, Myla Simbulan, Eagle News, we live in interesting times. Back to you, Alfred.
Mahalo, thanks a lot for that update, especially as the government there is taking care of families through this effort. Now, I'm just doing a little bit of rough math here. It's almost already hovering above 100 million. So why do you think that the state needs to allocate or invest this much on child care providers?
That's a good question, Alfred. Now that most of the counties here in Pennsylvania is in the final phase of reopening and some people are starting to go back to work, we will need child care available so parents can resume working. And of course, it's also crucial to continue providing high quality care during this critical years or early years when children are rapidly learning. Alfred?
Yeah, and it's also part of the state going back to normal or the new normal, along with other industries, and of course the risk will not go away. It'll be interesting to see how Pennsylvania goes through this cycle. Thank you, and stick around. We're going to have a little chat on an interesting topic later on in our broadcast, Milo. Thank you again.
Thanks, Alfred.
Wrapping up in our East Coast, Governor Phil Murphy in New Jersey announces new funding to combat food insecurity in the Garden State. From Sicklerville, we have Mayan Manzana-Garzon with her report. Aloha, Mayan.
Thank you, Alfred. Governor Phil Murphy announced that he will direct money from the Coronavirus Relief Fund established under the Federal Coronavirus Aid, Relief and Economic Security Act, or CARES, to support New Jersey food banks, which have been providing families with food assistance at unprecedented rates during the COVID-19 pandemic. The total CARES Act funding amount will be $20 million, with $10 million distributed before August 2020 and an additional $10 million available before 2020. Take a look.
Over the past 2.5 years, we've all worked together to enhance food stability for countless families across New Jersey. This effort has been a pillar. I want to give him a shout out of Speaker Craig Coughlin's leadership. He led the 10-bill package that I proudly signed last year, which feels like 100 years ago. And I am proud to once again share the stage with him and the Senate President as we continue our work to tackle hunger. That legislative package I just mentioned was necessary in the best of times. Times when we cannot forget that even in good times, greater than 1 in 10 New Jersey families were food insecure. In times like today, however, and Carlos gave you some sense of this, they have taken on even greater importance as the number of families facing food insecurity has grown, unfortunately because of the impacts of COVID-19. And now they are absolutely vital. Over the past 4 months, more than 1 million, well over 1 million families have experienced job loss due to this pandemic. And many of them have relied upon, for the very first time, community-based food pantries to help make ends meet. So today, we're here to extend a lifeline to our community's lifelines. I am proud to announce that together, the Community Food Bank of New Jersey, along with our state's 5 other coordinating emergency feeding organizations, and Carlos alluded to them already, the Food Bank of South Jersey, Fulfill, Mercer Street Friends, Norwest Cap, and Southern Regional, will receive an immediate emergency infusion of $10 million in Federal CARES Act provided. That's good. That's $10 million in Federal CARES Act provided funding, with an additional $10 million available for the months ahead, for a total of $20 million.
The $20 million in CARES Act funding will be distributed from the Department of Agriculture to the state's 6 emergency feeding organizations: Southern Regional, Food Bank of South Jersey, the Community Food Bank of New Jersey, Mercer Street Friends, Fulfill, and Norwest Cap, based on a fair share formula that uses these organizations' service numbers. The governor also highlighted nearly $390 million in additional federal funding for food assistance, which will benefit thousands of families and children as New Jersey continues to grapple with this pandemic. Of the $390 million, the Department of Human Services and Department of Education will begin delivering $208 million in special food assistance benefits to more than 500,000 school children who would have received free or reduced price school meals during the school year. Additionally, the Department of Human Services has delivered more than $180 million in new added benefits from federal funding to provide individuals and families who receive Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, food assistance, and secured federal approval to make it easier to apply for and retain SNAP benefits. Meanwhile, here is today's statistical report of New Jersey's COVID-19 cases. According to the Department of Health of New Jersey, there is 349 new positive cases reported today, bringing a statewide total of 175,298 New Jerseyans tested positive. Sadly, we have 16 new deaths, adding to a total of 13,594 fatalities. New Jersey is currently on stage 2 of its road to recovery. In Sicklerville, New Jersey, May and Manzano Garzon, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you, Alfred.
We'll be right back for more updates across the United States. This is Eagle News America. Don't change that channel.
Hello, my name is Robin, and I'm 5 years old. My mom and dad said many people are getting sick. That is why we have to stay at home. That is why I cannot go to school. I cannot play outside. And I cannot even visit my friends. We can only go outside if we visit the doctor. Or if we need to buy some food. And when we get home, we have to wash our hands. While I'm at home, I do my homework, clean up my toys, help cooking our food and help my parents with their work. Please stay home so we can all play together again. Bye!
Alfred Ascent is coming to you from Honolulu, Hawaii for Eagle News America. Let's go now to the Sunshine State in Florida. Pinellas County extends executive orders amid the surge of cases of COVID-19. In Tampa and Central Florida, we have Eagle News correspondent Abby Aragon with the details. Aloha, Abby.
The past few days have been very humid and rainy here in Tampa, Florida. The temperature has been in the 90s and continues to rise, just like the state's reported coronavirus cases. As of today, Florida reported 15,000 new cases, the record for single-day infections in the United States. Per CDC report, currently over 40 hospitals across the state have declared their ICUs at full capacity, with 30 almost full at 90%. With the increase in numbers across the state, and as Pinellas County sees its highest use of hospital and intensive care unit beds since the virus was first reported in March, the Board of County Commissioners unanimously extended Pinellas County's state of emergency order, keeping the mask ordinance in place. The emergency order has been extended to July 17th, which allows the county to access federal money. According to County Administrator Barry Burton, quote, "The real issue when we started this off back a long time ago was to flatten the curve and allow our healthcare system to catch up. They're currently being strained," end quote. In an attempt to follow the county-wide mask ordinance requiring face coverings, Pinellas County is offering free face masks to its residents. There are approximately 20 distribution locations throughout the county. According to the county's official website, this is a part of efforts to, quote, "slow a recent rapid spike in COVID-19 cases in the community," end quote. County officials are also revising plans for hurricane shelters due to the virus. Plans are in place to promote social distancing, allocating 60 square feet per person as opposed to previous 20 square feet. Mandatory use of face coverings, and it is recommended that hand sanitizer and disinfectant wipes be included to individual emergency kits. If an individual is COVID-19 positive or pending test results at the time of evacuation, they may have to shelter in a separate shelter away from other individuals. In Tampa, Florida, Abby Aragon, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you, Alfred. The past few days have been...
Mahalo, thank you very much, Abby. And it's interesting that one major theme park there has decided to reopen. So it's good to see some kind of attempt to go back to normal despite the challenges with the cases there. Be careful, please. Thank you. We'll be right back for more updates across the United States. This is Eagle News America. Don't change that channel.
Know the latest news and information here and abroad in Aguila Balita, the morning and noontime news programs brought about by the synergy of Net25 and Radio Aguila.
Get the fresh news and reports from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao in our midday newscast in Aguila, Pilipinas.
Track the latest stories in the provinces in Aguila Provincia.
Be aware of important events in the region in ASEAN in Focus.
And be updated with the biggest news around the world with the support of its international correspondents and volunteers in Eagle News International.
Tune in to Mata ng Aguila and get the day's headlines and news that are sharp, accurate, and objective. Catch all of these on Net25, your reliable source of news, entertainment, and technology updates.
You can also watch our news and current affairs programs and entertainment shows through our Eagle News and Net25 Facebook pages, YouTube channel, at Eagle News, and in our live streaming sites. Be informed with relevant news and information in these interesting times.
It says the best defense is still containment.
We are in uncharted territory.
Lighter volume 450. FI on to 100%. Standing by. Suctioning.
Events happen around us all the time, in our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced. Eagle News, because we live in interesting times.
Mga kababayan, naharap na naman po tayo sa mabigat na pagsubok na ito. Ito yung COVID-19.
I hope everyone's okay. I hope everyone's safe.
Nandito po kami para hikayatin pa po kayo na maging matibay.
Mas maging matatag po tayo and just stay positive po sa lahat po ng nangyayari ngayon.
Mga mahal kong kababayan, lampasan po natin, pagtagumpayan po natin ang pagsubok na ito.
Stay strong sa panahon po na to.
Huwag tayong mawawalan ng pag-asa.
At inihikayat din po namin kayo na sana makinig po tayo sa ating gobyerno.
Sumunod muna tayo sa gobyerno dahil yun yung pinakamainam na paraan para hindi na lumagana pa yung virus.
Let's all stay at home.
Spend time with our loved ones, with our families. At higit po sa lahat, make sure to pray for everyone, pray for everything that is going on right now, especially our frontliners po who are sacrificing their lives to take care of everything.
Higit sa lahat, patuloy tayong lumapit, magtiwala at manalangin sa ating Panginoong Diyos.
Lagi tayong manalangin dahil yung po ang may pinaka-mainam na solusyon sa lahat po ng mga problema natin.
God bless you and your family. Please stay strong and keep our faith.
Tuloy po ang laban.
Alfred Asenas for Eagle News America, coming to you from Hawaii. Let's move on now to the West Coast in Washington State. School districts there collaborate with community leaders and parents to reopen the schools safely. In Seattle, we have our own Bureau Chief, Frendo Feheran, with the details. Aloha, Frendo.
Aloha, Alfred. Hope you're doing well. And yes, we are now talking about reopening the schools in the fall. But before we get into the meat of the report, allow me to give you some statistics. So positive cases are now at 39,218. Hospitalizations have gone up to 4,662. And sadly, the death toll is now 1,424. Now, reopening schools during this time is not a simple task. There is much involved. The Washington State Department of Health, in collaboration with the Office of the Governor and the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction, has provided the following set of rules and guidance for student and staff health and safety. The following guidance incorporates information from the CDC interim guidance for administrators of U.S. K-12 schools, and childcare programs. Plan, prepare, and respond to coronavirus disease 2019. K-12 schools and childcare programs and CDC COVID-19 considerations for schools. It is intended to assist schools in complying with Governor and Office of Superintendent. The collaboration doesn't end here. State leaders are advising the school districts to reach out to parents, guardians, students, teachers, nurses, counselors, community-based organizations, and many others. For an effective collaborative effort, there are themes that must be kept in the forefront of the mastermind and planning. For example, grading policies, homework policies, disparate technology access, learning standards, mastery of competency-based learning models, flexible options for students, multi-tiered systems of support, and other innovations. Now, the education experience in our schools will be the start of the new normal. Why? Because COVID-19 is still very alive. And like governments worldwide, Washington State continues to devise plans to better serve the people. In this case, our students and our families. In-person education is undoubtedly the most effective medium of teaching our children, which is why family feedback is an important element. As an example, here in the Puyallup School District, there have been more than 6,400 parents who responded to the Reopening Schools Family Survey, highlighting top concerns as health and safety factors. It is a requirement to make plans that meet state guidelines for returning to school, which includes social distancing, face coverings, symptom checks, and cleaning protocols. Classrooms and common areas will be sanitized regularly, and appropriate amounts of cleaning supplies will be available at all schools. District administration and task force members are conducting intense planning on a hybrid A-B schedule instructional model that would allow for 2 days of in-person instruction and 3 days of continuous distant learning each week. Maximizing in-person instruction for younger learners has been top focus. They are evaluating various options for younger learners in grades K through 3 to receive in-person instruction that would allow for more than 2 days of instruction. However, options are contingent on the number of students expected to return in the fall. Families not comfortable with having their children return to school in a hybrid instructional model will be able to choose a full-time consistent learning model. Now, parents, be rest assured that bases have been covered to provide a safe and effective learning space. Let's continue to participate in the surveys that go out, and because this is the most important information our schools need to reopen our school. Seattle, Washington, Friends Alpha Heron, Eagle News, we live in interesting times. Back to you, Alfred.
Mahalo very much, Frendel. Thanks for that update. You mentioned Puyallup School District. I believe that's the district where your kids go to, correct? How's the communication as far as between the school officials and the parents who may have questions? Is the school district responsive enough?
Oh, most definitely. Thank you for the question, Alfred. Yes, the Puyallup School District is they keep in contact with the parents all the time via emails. And it's not just from the superintendent office, but teachers themselves have been keeping their communication lines open with the parents, with the students. And at this time, we're just really happy to know that there is a plan. Now it's all about the parents selecting which plan they will choose for their kids come fall. So as a parent, Alfred, I'm really excited that we have the option and that they are more than willing to accommodate the preferences of the parents.
And what's the start date of school resuming there in the 2021 school year?
So we're anticipating to start right before Labor Day. And so I believe that's like September 6th, something like that, right. The last week of September. Right. So it's coming up soon,
Okay, and of course, with that, parents will be going to the stores, getting school supplies, and still got to practice safe, distancing in the big box stores. So you take care of yourself there and the kids in preparation for the school year. Thanks again.
Thank you, Alfred.
In Louisiana, Governor John Bel Edwards orders a statewide mask mandate. We have Monique Velasco with the details. Monique?
Aloha to you, Alfred, and hello from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. On Saturday, June 11, Governor John Bel Edwards announced a mandatory mask requirement for Louisiana. All indoor gatherings are limited to 50 total people to prevent the spread of illness. Additionally, bars will be closed to on-premises consumption and can do curbside takeout or delivery service only. These rules are effective Monday, July 13 at 12:01 a.m. Governor Edwards stated cases in Louisiana continue to increase, including setting a record high number of new cases reported in one day today and yesterday. While I had hoped to avoid going backwards on restrictions, it is obvious that it is necessary as COVID-19 has spread to every corner at a level higher than we have previously seen. He added, "Right now, all Louisianans need to work together to reduce the spread of COVID-19. This approach also gives us the best possible chance to again flatten the curve without moving back to phase 1. The statewide mask mandate applies to all 64 parishes in Louisiana. However, parishes with a COVID-19 incidence of fewer than 100 cases per 100,000 people for the most recent 2-week period could choose to opt out of the mandate. The order requires face coverings for everyone ages 8 and older, although children ages 2 to 7 are recommended to wear a mask. Outdoor social gatherings are also limited to 50 people if 6 feet distancing is not possible, but will not apply to those businesses deemed essential as defined by the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or any businesses and organizations operating at 50% capacity, including churches and other faith-based organizations. The new order is set to expire July 24, 2020, but could be extended. With these additional restrictions, Louisiana remains in phase 2 of the roadmap for a resilient Louisiana. Hope you're staying safe in there, Hawaii. Alfred, in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, I'm Monique Velasco, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you, Alfred.
Mahalo, thank you very much, Monique, and you stay safe over there. And I know the temperature there is also rising there in the deep south, so be careful. Let's go now to LA. COVID-19 cases continue to rise in LA County. In Oxnard, we have David Regio with the details. Aloha, David.
Thank you, Alfred. The latest numbers of confirmed new COVID-19 cases and deaths for Los Angeles County are in. The findings are not encouraging. A whopping 57 new coronavirus deaths were just reported yesterday on July 11th to 18 new deaths today. And while that's a drop in the death total, the number of new cases has risen from 2,916 on Saturday to 3,322 on this Sunday. Recent data continues to show that the majority of deaths are of individuals over the age of 65. Most had underlying health conditions. Those 18 to 40 and 41 to 65 years old make up the remainder of coronavirus fatalities for adults. When it comes to ethnicity, nearly half of those that died are Latino, 26% white, 16% Asian, and 11% are African Americans. Health protocols to avoid getting sick continue to include washing your hands frequently, use of hand sanitizers, and not touching the face, and wearing of face coverings while out in public. The elderly and those identified as at risk are highly advised to stay home as much as possible, and everyone is reminded to keep social distancing. But staying indoors or putting off fun times with friends may be a challenge for some Angelenos, especially since LA is currently experiencing a heat wave this passing weekend. We're talking triple-digit temperatures. The temptation to head out to the beach might trump cooling off at home in front of the air conditioner, which could result in more COVID-19 cases if people don't follow physical distancing rules and other health orders. But for those who absolutely must be out in the sun, there are a few reminders to keep folks from overheating. First, try to go out when the temperature isn't at its hottest. Wear sunscreen, a hat, or use an umbrella. Never leave children or pets in the cars, and make sure to drink plenty of fluids all day in order to stay hydrated. Keep from doing anything too strenuous, not just because of the heat, but of the face coverings that we are all wearing. Due to the pandemic, many elderly are staying at home. So during this heat wave, it's important to check in on our older family members and friends to make sure that they are safe. A good place for them to relax during hot weather is at one of the cooling centers that are open to the public. However, just keep in mind that infection control measures still apply, including physical distancing. In Los Angeles County, the total number of confirmed cases in the county are 133,549, with 3,809 deaths and 2,093 current hospitalizations, as announced today by the Los Angeles Public Health Department. Meanwhile, the state of California has a total of 320,804 confirmed COVID-19 cases and 7,017 deaths as recorded by the California Department of Public Health. In Oxnard, California, David Reggio, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you, Alfred.
Thanks very much for the latest there in Southern California. You be careful there and stay safe, David. Now, wrapping up our reports here in the West Coast, we go to Nevada, where Governor Steve Sisolak issues Emergency Directive 027, that is the elevated disease transmission criteria. For more, we have our Bureau Chief, Anna Cui, with the details. Anna?
Thank you, Alfred. According to a recent press release, Nevada Governor Steve Sisolak announced that certain businesses where people tend to gather for long periods of time, such as bars, taverns, pubs, and wineries, in some Nevada counties, it was actually ordered to close already as of 11:59 p.m. Friday, July 10th. And this is to help slow down the spread of COVID-19 here in Nevada. As you know, Alfred, many of the states have increasing numbers of new cases, and Nevada is one of them. We are now at 8% positivity rate compared to 6.6% 2 weeks ago, and that's according to the COVID Tracking Project. And, Alfred, the governor is following through with his warning that he gave about 2 weeks ago when he issued the mandate for everyone to wear face coverings when out in public. He stated then that he will not hesitate to take swift actions should our numbers continue to worsen, and unfortunately it has. But because Nevada, as other states, is comprised of 17 counties, and each county has been impacted by COVID-19 differently, the Nevada Health Response Team, which works closely in collaboration with the Governor's Office, Department of Health and Human Services, and Division of Emergency Management, has created a county tracker that will help in assessing each county for elevated disease transmission. So what are the criteria? Well, keep in mind that these numbers are calculated per 100,000 to control for varying populations of each county. Number one, average number of tests per day. Now, this is the total number of tests over 14 days from the previous week. If the county has less than 150, then they meet this risk criteria. Number two of the criteria is the case rate. So this is the number of positive cases over a 14-day period, over a 2-week period. And if the county has more than 100, then they meet that risk criteria. Lastly, number three is the case rate of more than 25 and testing positive of more than 7% over a 7-day period. They will meet this risk criteria. So counties that meet two of the three criteria are then considered having an elevated disease transmission, and sadly, Las Vegas falls into Clark County, and we are on that list. What happens to those that's on that list? Well, they will be subject to the restrictions outlined in Directive 27, which states, as I mentioned earlier, that bars, pubs, taverns, and similar establishments not licensed to serve food will be closed until further notice at this time. The governor stated they can go back to curbside pickup or home delivery, but no longer allowed to have patrons in the premises. So this is similar to, phase 1. Restaurants with bar top areas can remain open but must close their bar areas. Now, in addition, Governor Sisolak added that all restaurants and similar businesses licensed to serve food may not seat parties larger than 6 people, indoors or outdoors. And while this directive does not prohibit indoor dining, the governor strongly encourages all food establishments to promote outdoor dining as much as possible. Now, Alfred, I know, Las Vegas, Las Vegas temperature is climbing here as well. So that's going to be a real challenge. Like today, we had a high of 114 degrees Fahrenheit, which is equivalent to 45 degrees Celsius. Now, due to the ever-evolving nature of this virus, Governor Sisolak and his team will continue to monitor, especially our hospital capacity. And, based on new information, he did mention that they may change the criteria based in the best interest of public health. In Las Vegas and the Qui Eagle News, we live in interesting times. Back to you, Alfred.
Mahalo, and it sounds like the entire state is going back to phase 1. Is that where the state government is planning on going to?
Well, that is what most of the people, like today I was out and about the last couple of days actually, and I hear people, hey, did you hear we're back in phase 1? So not exactly, the whole state is not back in phase 1. Those restrictions are similar to when we were in phase 1. So that's why a lot of people heard phase 1 and they just assumed that now Nevada is back to phase 1. But no, we're still in phase 2 technically.
That's good to know, and hang in there, and we'd like to always over here like to know what's going on there in Hawaii's 9th Island. You stay safe, you and your family there, please. Thank you again.
Thanks, Alfred.
Now, before we sign off, we can never thank enough our frontline essential workers who continue to look out for our health and the peace and order and safety in our respective communities. We salute you, and we wish you the best in the way ahead. This is all for Eagle News America. Stay tuned for other news programs right here on EBC. Reporting from Honolulu, Hawaii, I'm Alfred Acenas. We live in interesting times. Aloha.
Ng mga balita. Global COVID-19 case malapit ng